Hey, how you doing? I hope you're doing well. Now I know what you're thinking. I know what you're gonna say. Look at old HiTop Views Are Down films hating on a modern MCU classic yet again for clicks. And you're damn fucking right, I'm gonna milk this cow as much as Deadpool 3 milks the shattered remains of a studio merger that cost tens of thousands of people their jobs. But all ass covering aside, you might be shocked to find out that I'm a huge fan of Deadpool 1 and 2, genuinely. I think we as a culture undermine those two movies as just forgettable, annoying dick jokes for 14-year-olds, when in reality, they are heartfelt and sincere, passionate superhero movies with a lot of annoying dick jokes aimed at 14-year-olds. Wade Wilson has always been an interesting character to watch, even if the jokes don't always land, even if the constant winking while doing the exact thing he's making fun of gets kind of old. But to me, Wade and Ryan Reynolds' always dedicated and passionate performance is palpable and contagiously empathetic enough to keep me on board. When I first heard they were bringing old Hugh Jackman back, all I could do was roll my eyes. I mean, come on, it felt like the most creatively bankrupt thing you could do. It felt like the most disingenuous way to make $1 billion, whereas the first two Deadpool films got by, survived, and thrived because of how genuine they felt in spite of the constant kamikaze of cynical jokes about the state of superhero stories. Then I heard the storytellers behind the movie talk about the movie, and I was sold on the bromance of Ryan and Hugh, sold on the clear admiration and love they clearly have for these characters, and I thought, okay, even if this is, from a business perspective, from a story perspective, the most predictable and safe way to make the mouse a few $billion fatter, at least it would be some charm and cheese. Maybe it would maintain the heart and the soul of the first two movies and give us that fun buddy cop comedy that masqueraded the horribly bleak reality of how this film came to be. A studio merger that allows all of us fanboys to get shittier versions of the wonderful, innocent childhood fantasies we once had, that in reality sucked for so many people and only contributes, supports, and validates a large monopoly that already owns way too many things. Yet, I had hope. And perhaps that hope was misplaced, because underneath all the passion that Ryan Reynolds continues to bring, underneath all the glimpses of our fantasies come true, underneath Wolverine's comic-accurate action figure cowl, is a movie that actively, despite trying so hard not to be, represents everything that is fundamentally, for a lack of a better word, fucked about the state of modern blockbuster storytelling. This ain't gonna be a video about how Marvel ruined Deadpool, or how being in the MCU took the charm out of these characters, or how Shawn Levy lost the sauce to the corporate machine. None of that shit happened. This is gonna be a video about how the multiversal Marvel storytelling actively works against every single genuinely interesting idea, concept, and character arc the movie has. During the climax of Deadpool and Wolverine, Wade Wilson jokes that we are sick of the multiverse shit. Jokes about how the idea was fun, but it did not work and it's time to wrap it up. Wade was right, except he should have said it before they started filming. I once made an overdramatic video called "We Killed the Multiverse." This is an overdramatic video on how the multiverse killed Deadpool and Wolverine. But before we get into it, you ever try Googling yourself? I'm sure you have. You Google my dumbass, and one of the first links that pops up outside the hate pages that I fall asleep to every night is this site right here that claims to have my contact information. That's supposedly my email, my phone number that this site would be willing to give you for a small monthly fee. That ain't my email nor my real phone number, yet it's probably all out there, man, wrong or right, and these brokers will try to sell it to anyone looking to buy because these big companies can't keep our data safe. I mean, recently AT&T revealed that nearly all of their customers' call and text records have been exposed in a massive data breach, resulting in over 70 million users having their social security numbers end up on the dark web. So what can you do to protect yourself? Well, I use the sponsor of today's video, Aura. Aura is this nifty little app that will alert me if they find my phone number or any other sensitive information has been compromised. They'll give me and you fast fraud updates if anyone tries to use that data to, I don't know, access our credit cards, our bank accounts, everything we need to function. One time, true story, somebody at the McDonald's snapped a pic of my debit card, then spent the next 3 hours buying every single Switch game game they could. If I had Aura back then, it might have stopped the Hamburglar in his tracks. Aura goes that extra mile in keeping me and the homies safe. Transaction monitoring, a VPN, antivirus software, password managers, identity theft insurance, the whole package of protection all in one app for one affordable price. They got this nifty AI-powered call assistant that will pick up those pesky unknown number calls on my behalf to screen them for spams and scams. The software forwards all legit calls to me so I don't miss any deliveries or emergencies while blocking the creepy and scummy scammers and filthy fishers. Listen, I'm a paranoid guy, like a very poor and dumb version of Batman, and I ain't gonna leave myself vulnerable to any data breaches, and I doubt you want to either, so do yourself a solid and check out Aura by clicking the link in the description or going to aura.com/HiTop to try your first 2 weeks for free. Keep yourself safe. Thanks, guys. When it was announced that Shawn Levy was going to direct a big-budget Deadpool movie, one where Hugh Jackman was stepping back into the tank top, I only had one thought. Fuck. Fun fact, this isn't Shawn's first superhero project. Birds of Prey Season 1 Episode 9, Nature of the Beast, was his first. But seriously, I mean absolutely no disrespect to the man, even though after watching this video, he'll probably want to cut my tongue out and feed it to his dog. Shawn's career is, and probably will always be, more prosperous than some self-important YouTube honker who just made an illegal self-serious Robin movie for his first feature film and is now ranting on the internet about a genuinely successful filmmaker's Deadpool film in order to finance the rest of it. I ain't talking down, guys. I'm rambling from the inside of the fucking toilet bowl. So with the utmost respect, I say that Shawn tends to direct movies that you legitimately would and will find 300 copies of in the Walmart bargain bin. You shove your hand in there, what could possibly come out? What are the odds that you pull out the DVD copy of any of the Levy classics? Cheaper by the dozen. Is that Tom Welling? Night at the Museum 1, 2, or 3, maybe the combo pack. Just Married, Date Night, Real Steel, Big Fat Liar, and of course the Internship. I call this game Levy Roulette, except there's 6 bullets in the chamber. Recently, Shawn has made the jump from discount DVD movies that we fondly remember watching at our grandma's house repeatedly to Netflix movies that I've never seen but have heard nothing about. Point is, Shawn makes crowd pleasers, ABC Family marathoners, and he's good at it. I'm not condemning his skill because of the genre he chooses to operate in. He knows where to place the camera, he knows when to go practical, he knows how to get a few chuckles, and he knows when to stop the laughs and try and be serious. But in theory, this is probably the most safe, sanitized pick for a director Marvel could have gone with. I'm sure Shawn and Ryan and Hugh from the Real Steel days are all best pals. I'm sure that played a huge part in it, and I'm sure Free Guy made Disney a decent chunk of change. But to me, my fear was that Deadpool and Wolverine would be this soulless, cynical, mass-appealing sequel that misses the point of why the first 2 films worked. You're taking a filmmaker who has never ever, and I mean literally ever, operated from outside the Disney Channel system. Someone who tries to tap into the culture rather than say anything counter to it. And you're giving that filmmaker an absurdly large budget to make a film that needed to be, as much as humanly possible, something different. You needed someone who understood that Deadpool works best when he's outside looking in, that understood why Wolverine has always worked the best when he's not forced into any kind of genre norm. And you got a guy, the guy, who specializes in never pushing the limits, the boundaries, but is the expert at playing whatever Spotify recommends. To quote Shawn himself, "I'm not looking to make movies and shows for an audience of 7 cool kids in the corner. I build stories for populist entertainment." Deadpool and Wolverine is a film about outsiders that tries to find worth in the island of the misfit superhero properties, made by a filmmaker whose career has been carried by playing it entirely safe. This is a long mouth vomit way of saying that my greatest fear for Deadpool and Wolverine is that it would be this one moment from Free Guy that haunts my cerebellum like the cancer that is constantly trying to eat Wade's body. What the shit? And my fear came true somewhere in Act 2. But for the first 15 minutes, I believed there was a chance I was wrong. I felt like this was going to be more a sequel to the first 2 movies and less a hodgepodge of cameos and retreaded themes that were executed better 20 years ago. I thought for a small, brief, innocent moment that Deadpool and Wolverine wasn't going to just be an empty spectacle that we clap at in between our loud chewing of overpriced popcorn that we willingly choose to eat out of the mouth of a poorly made $45 plastic piece of shit.
You like that, huh? Go f your sister.
Vanessa was there, Colossus was there, Blind Al, Peter, the gang, the soul of why, for me, Deadpool has always worked. The first action scene had at least an ounce of vision to it. I mean, I was expecting this. So I was pleasantly surprised by the decent framing and choreography and the pure fuck it attitude of using Logan's skull to brutally maim these Disney agents. I was so hopeful when I thought that the main threat of the movie was going to be brand integration, was going to be the mouse begging Wade to join their MCU and him giving him a giant middle finger fuck you to the rat bastard. And for that brief while there, it truly felt like this was the direction they were going, a story about staying true to your character and ignoring the corporate IP demands that will make you canon. But yet, even if the movie, even if Wade tells you that's the point, even if all the supporting characters repeat that sentiment out loud, everything in the filmmaking and eventually the narrative actively works against that original idea. Wade Wilson fights the MCU and loses, even if he says otherwise. Deadpool jokes about how he's entering the MCU at a bit of a low point. He pokes fun at what's not working about modern Marvel movies. Yet Wade's entire character is completely regressed in service of said terrible Marvel movies. Deadpool, the guy who was completely driven by his idea of love in the first film, completely motivated by the loss of love and the need to save another abused outsider from turning ugly, turning broken like him in his second film. That same character, that same guy, all of the sudden feels such rejection at the idea that he cannot be an Avenger, that he cannot be accepted into the club, that he deteriorates, he shuts down, causing him to lose the one person that helped give him his heroism. All because he is rejected by the corporate overlords, the Tony Starks. He gives up on being Deadpool to work as a car salesman. He needs the approval of Mr. Paradox, Mr. Feige in order to keep his home. I get the meta commentary, man. Trust me, I get it. I understand the whole idea of his world collapsing since Logan died is a giant commentary on the fact that without Hugh Jackman, the X-Men movies, the Fox universe would never have made the cultural dent that it did. Mr. Paradox, Disney, by all means, is the villain. The TVA is the clear stand-in for the apathetic monopoly that wishes to just keep the iconography and box office potential of Deadpool, yet take away everything that makes him Wade Wilson, that gives him his heart. Great idea. Problem is, they never fully commit to that idea because at the end of the day, this is a movie financed, approved, and made by the very thing that the film's central plot revolves around criticizing. So of course there needs to be some fanboying on Deadpool's part. Of course Wade still needs to want to be an Avenger, because if he spent the entire time roasting how soulless and cynical the MCU has become, we might actually start to take him seriously. We might actually believe it. Making him an Avengers reject is the easiest, lamest fast track to reconnect the general public to the character. Oh wow, we love Captain America, so Wade must as well. Oh wow, we want him to be in the Avengers, wouldn't that be so fun? Wouldn't he be so funny? So he wants that as well. Problem is, this is the guy, the character who literally said, fuck the X-Men, I'm killing this abuser in Deadpool 2.
Those guys hurt you?
That kid was abused. You can tell, you can always tell.
We have rules.
Fuck your rules. I fight for what's right, and sometimes you gotta fight dirty.
This is the guy who has always played by his own rules and above all else deeply cared about his own people. The last time we saw him on screen, he had found his found family of misfits and had grown the most a character like him possibly can to be okay with being constantly fucked over. Wade in this movie essentially learns the exact same thing he did in Deadpool 2. How to be okay being a misfit, how to find himself a brotherhood in a loner who believes he failed his family, how to find purpose in being the one that brings the outsiders together. Only this time it has the Disney approved sticker right on top of it, so it's canon, so it matters. Deadpool can make all the jokes, roast how stale and uninvested so many audience members are these days, but when the foundation of his journey in the film starts with him being rejected by Happy Hogan, the storytellers are kind of telling us all we need to know. You can criticize something, be the supposed outsider, but deep down, you must have that deep desire to be a part of it. You must still support it in order to be allowed to grow, to live within it. It's fucking bleak, man. By trying not to disrespect Logan, you end up disrespecting Logan. Hugh Jackman just clearly wanted to make a movie with his friend and get paid millions upon millions of dollars to do it. And he's good as always. He's not phoning it in. Even if the script itself justifies the exact reasoning as to why there was absolutely no story left to tell with his Wolverine, even if they say this isn't his Wolverine. That's the distinction they make. It's not the Logan that died in Logan. The movie, the characters make it so guiltily clear that they are not trying to tarnish what James Mangold and Hugh Jackman did. Half the jokes and lines about it feel like a direct apology to James Mangold. Sorry, buddy, we promise we aren't trying to fuck up your movie. Yet, if I was James Mangold and I'm sitting in that theater opening night and see the most tender, emotional moment of my film be clipped on the TV screens of the fucking TVA while goofy comedic extra number 5 sheds a prideful tear. We did it, Joe. I would seppuku myself with a fucking pointed horn of a popcorn tin. I would take that adamantium bullet and send it flying straight to the back of my skull. But behind all the apologies and universe anchor nonsense, this is the same Logan, except in a costume. I mean, seriously, think about it. This Logan lives in a universe where he feels somewhat responsible for killing the X-Men. But in Logan, the film, Charles killed the X-Men. In Deadpool and Wolverine, he was busy getting drunk at the bar when the humans did it. Either way, we are dealing with a loner alcoholic who let his family down and is spending his days wasting away behind the bottle waiting for death. It's like looking in a mirror. He even goes through the exact same arc, except it's like the fucking Cliff Notes version. Here's a Wolverine who fought with the X-Men, lost to the X-Men, and is now a cynical drunk. He no longer wants to help anybody for fear that he will hurt them as he has so many others. He finds purpose when someone also experimented on and abused comes into his life, needing his help in saving the few people this lost soul can find family in. It's a reluctant pairing at first until a tender moment forces self-reflection and self-realization that even if maybe you failed, even if you will always view yourself as that monster, you can still use what little time you have left to help give those who once believed in you a bit of hope. He rediscovers what being an X-Men has meant all along. I don't know how to break this to you, but it's the exact same arc, condensed, stripped of all the nuance, but sugar-coated with a colorful costume. And yeah, some of it works, some of it feels fresh because Hugh Jackman's a great actor and always delivers in the intensity and the emotion. But by working so hard to not disrespect the Logan that we grew up with, the Logan that died, they end up completely and utterly wasting the character. Quick question, sorry. Why is Laura here? I mean, on a thematic emotional level, sure, you need that third act emotional push, but seeing that little tormented and tortured violent girl who had that underlying vulnerability, seeing her all grown up to be a generic multiverse outsider, a Marvel Studios caricature who wears the same glasses during a pop song superhero walk, a caricature that has no purpose other than to give the lead superhero an emotional speech? I don't know, man. That's about the most disrespectful, disingenuous, distasteful continuation you could have thought of. And I really doubt that was the point. I don't think any of them had intended for that to play that way, and I'm sure it won't play that way to a lot of audience members. But like, what?
I can't do this.
If the whole movie was about her getting to finally spend time with her dead father, sure, I guess. If she didn't just pop back up at the end out of the blue somehow in Wade Wilson's apartment petting Dogpool alongside, not her dad, but still her dad, even though her dad is probably still alive, right? Like, she's from the future. Technically, Logan isn't dead yet, so there are two Logans running around in Wade's universe at the point we end the story on, right? Wouldn't that cause, what the fuck have they spent like 5 movies calling it? An erection?
Incursion?
Give an incursion.
Could have been one hell of an incursion.
You caused an incursion.
And look, all jokes aside, if they gave Laura's story here weight, meaning if they didn't give us a shallow retread with a few different beats for Wolverine, I would not be questioning all the weird timeline, time travel logic. I would not be questioning all the cynical corporate choices you have to suspend your disbelief of in order to feel an ounce of emotion. The more money, the less lovely. Tim Miller and Ryan Reynolds did the impossible with Deadpool 1. They somehow made a $58 million movie look like a $200 million movie, but feel like a $4 million passion project. It should not look as expensive as it does, yet it should not have the smallness nor the intimacy that it has. You've heard the stories. Ryan Reynolds took a pay cut to get it made. Tim Miller and him leaked the footage so that the fans would support it and they could get a budget from a studio that had absolutely no faith in the character. Every single choice in that first film feels entirely in service to making the perfect Deadpool movie that wasn't just goofy and meta, but was heartfelt and vulnerable. From the dirty, grungy sets that are always filled with dirt, rust, and junk that reflect the seedy underbelly of the Marvel universe that Wade operates in, to the cinematography that is by no means game-changing or awe-inspiring, but is always intimate and always tender. Like I said, it felt like a passion project. Ryan Reynolds' brilliance with the first two films was realizing that eventually you will get sick of Wade and his shtick, so he populated the world with supporting characters that not only served to call out Deadpool's childlike antics, but more importantly, to be very down and dirty reflections of his own humanity.
Your crazy matches my crazy, big time. And we're like two jigsaw pieces, you know, weird curvy edges.
You put them together and you can see the picture on top.
That first film works because it is a love story about two traumatized, lovable losers before it's any kind of superhero action comedy. And when you start populating Deadpool's supporting cast with bombastic comic book icons instead of very human outsiders, you begin to lose that charm and that humanity. The first film, in every single way, had a soul that was messy, thrown together, and trying to pull off way more than it could chew. Which, to me, is far more endearing than something so grand, so overstuffed in scale, desperately trying to maintain some semblance of that soul. The action was better back then, don't let Wolverine's mask fool ya. Both Wade and Logan have been in plenty of movies that have a far better grasp on how R-rated violence should feel, have far more thought out practical choreography that allows the moments of violence of slicing, maiming, and murdering to feel grounded and gruesome. Deadpool and Wolverine, outside of a few genuinely well-executed moments, contains action scenes filmed with the tangibility of a half-sketch cartoon you drew when you were 12. The ideas are there, a long tracking shot where a fully costumed duo kills 100 Deadpools in a cathartic bloodbath. But the level of digital plastic porcelain coating on top ruined any sense of reality or grandiosity that moment needed to have. Hugh finally dons a mask, white expressive eyes that move. Yet, I'm finding myself wishing I could see any number of the animal-like expressions I know he's conveying underneath that heavily polished CG cowl. The writing was better back then too. Don't let one monologue about being an X-Men trick ya. Both Wade's first two solo films and most of Logan's X-Men films had a story and growth for the characters that did not feel the need to recycle and condense character arcs into a multiverse movie. Some people have said that this film, at least compared to the horrendously cynical lows of The Flash, at least cares about the cameos, which are more like supporting roles here. Some have said that it uses the multiverse to pay respect to what built Marvel, to all the movies and memories that made us Marvel for the first time. So much heart underneath the black leather, soon to be or already movie stars playing the first big screen versions of the characters that comic readers could only dream of being seen adapted. Deadpool and Wolverine is a love letter to the early days of superhero cinema. Problem is, it's a poorly written one. The film gestures at being the multiverse movie that has a soul, that honors and respects what's come before. Yet, within the first 4 minutes of Chris Evans' Human Torch showing back up, the film has him flame off, fall, and hurt his balls. 10 minutes later, Johnny gets skinned alive before falling into a Scooby-Doo puddle of blood. The joke is that if any one of the Resistance, if any one of the Fox characters should have had the most screen time in the movie, it's Johnny. He's the one character that the casual audience member probably has the fondest memories of. I'm sure the bigwigs were too worried about having him play Johnny for too long that it might take away from their inevitable scheme to bring back Steve Rogers.
Disney brought him back. They're gonna make him do this till he's 90.
No.
And like, fuck yeah, Wesley Snipes is back. Who would have thought that would ever happen? But he's back to ruin the joy of some
motherfuckers are always trying to ice skate uphill.
He pulls the classic multiversal movie move. We have no idea what to make him say, so he will just say what he did 20 years ago.
The power of the sun in the palm of my hand.
I'm something of a scientist myself.
Spider-Man,
I'm out to play.
Oh, my back.
Lights out. Now you want to get nuts? Come on. Let's get nuts.
Yeah.
He's back to spin in a circle while the camera has no idea where to go and looks so much less iconic and grand than he did back in not only the first R-rated Marvel movie, but the first Marvel movie.
What is that? Fuck you. It's a joke, huh? The fuck is wrong with you? You think this is a joke? You think this is a fucking sitcom?
I can't do this.
Jennifer Gardner is here to do the same, except at least she gets a meaningful speech about wanting to have an actual ending. Problem is, and this has continued to be the multiverse problem, these characters don't really feel like they did in their own films. Jen's Elektra would never say, it's fine, about Matt dying. She's only saying it because you and I know that her and Ben Affleck had a very public divorce. Her defining character trait, maybe her only character trait in the Fox films, was her love of Ben's Matt, and her tragic death that tore them apart. Just because we know the meta joke that exists outside of her narrative, and Wade also knows, does not mean that she should know. Deadpool can make the joke, she can't, otherwise the whole thing feels like a joke. And it kind of is though, right? I mean, like, we're supposed to believe with the utmost sincerity that these fictional characters dying, their universes getting destroyed, is all a part of some cosmic plan. We must protect the sacred timeline, the glorious MCU, the storytellers who actually had to try to make anybody think superheroes are cool. All their work was in service of creating the MCU? Are you fucking serious? Like, no, really think about it. Deadpool and this Logan are allowed to keep their world. The moneymakers are allowed to live, to not get recast or rebooted just yet. Because the TVA, the mouse, knew they had and will always have money-making potential. Sure, Vanessa will be slowly written out. Wade will continue to be more and more neutered and marketable. Soon, all his grungy, messy supporting cast members will be relegated to one-scene cameos in service of whatever team-up the focus group can test. But it's all a part of the plan. It's all for a reason. This multiverse story, this one has heart. It's all about the heart. We knew that you were lacking the heart. Here's the heart. This is a love letter to those older movies. A love letter where the supporting characters die and are eaten by a giant purple plot cloud off screen, but supposedly, possibly brought back to life by the corporate entity that dictates everything off screen. A love letter where these heroes are stripped of their aesthetic, the vibes of their individual films and characters in service of becoming one with the aptly named Void. You can fight the Void all you want, but in the end, you will be forced and stripped of all your personality, your color, your character in service of a mass appealing, natural, ugly, vacant, ever-consuming gray. The final punchline being the credits montage, a genuinely, no joke, great compilation of clips and behind-the-scenes moments from over 20 years of blockbuster filmmaking, filled with characters that would actually make this movie far more meaningful a Fox send-off if they were actually in the film. Instead, Channing Tatum Gambit and Johnny Storm saying cock. It's fun, sure, I laughed. They're great as always, great actors, fuck. But wouldn't those 20 lines of dialogue be better utilized for some kind of emotional catharsis for Logan? For the audience? If they used any member of the original X-Men? Hell, cut Laura altogether and bring back Anna Paquin Rogue or Famke Janssen, Jean Grey, have them be the one to appear and assure Logan that there's still good in him. That works not only as a cool fan service moment, but as a send-off to these characters we haven't seen in a long time, and does not in any way step on the emotional beats of James Mangold's film. But the greatest gag of all being that the images, the shots in that montage were the most visually exciting frames in the movie. I say this every video, I know you're sick of hearing me say this, and I don't want to beat a dead horse more than I already have, but these things, even when they were genuinely nonsensical in terms of narrative,
Motherfucker.
actually used to look like movies. Blade 1, 2, even fucking Trinity had better set design. Elektra had far better lighting. Daredevil is a straight banger. The original X-Men movies, First Class, Days of Future Past, The Wolverine, Logan, all had cinematography that actually said something, that used the visual language and absurdly large budget to do something interesting, exciting, and evocative with the camera. This is why the on-screen multiverse looks and feels so uncannily boring. Forcing a filmmaker like Sam Raimi, you thought I wasn't gonna mention him, forcing his heightened individualized choices he took with his Spider-Man adaptations into John Watt's medium shot green screen Feige-owned rental home will never feel right on a visual level. Forcing Tim Burton's gothic noir Batman into a blue screen postmodern desert wasteland will always look like shit. Deadpool and Wolverine continues this trend. Deadpool and Wolverine works best as a somewhat tender reminder of what was, and an almost twisted, bleak look at what is. I know it sounds like I despise this movie, and truly, I don't. This will get me even more shit, but everything that did not work for me here worked 10 times less for me in the likes of No Way Home or The Flash. If anything, the best thing I can say about Deadpool and Wolverine is that what works is what always has, and it's right there in the title. Hugh Jackman is Wolverine, even when the script can't figure out anything new to do with him, and Ryan Reynolds truly loves Deadpool in a way that will always make me want to see what Wade Wilson is up to. I don't mean to be mean, I never do. I guess what I'm trying to get across is that I am the target audience. I am the kid who grew up watching the Fox and Sony universes bring these guys to life. I am the kid who loved and still loves the early days of the MCU. I still love a lot of their newer movies. I still am deeply invested in some of their characters. Even if it's true and I do feel all those things, I cannot help but feel this still ever-growing corporate cynicism that lurks behind these movies. Yeah, it's always been there from the very, very beginning, but they used to try to hide it better. Now it's out there in the open, a part of some half-cooked meta-commentary that we are supposed to applaud and clap at as they continue to dilute all the sincerity and all the soul. As the credits rolled on Deadpool and Wolverine, all I wanted to do was go home and rewatch the movies that came before the multiverse Marvel universe. Before all this was so mainstream that it became unbearably isolating. I wanted to rewatch the movies that did not feel the need to justify their own existence, that did not feel the need to pander to a universe that has fallen so far from the thrilling highs it used to soar at. Movies that underneath all the spectacle, all the action, were very human stories about what it's like to feel different. But for now, it sadly seems we won't get back to that baseline for a very long time. There are always and always will be exceptions. I guess I'm sad that something I viewed as an exception now has to play by the rules in order to maintain relevancy. Even when we joke, when we acknowledge how far we've stumbled, how far we've lost our way, that doesn't change the fact that we just can't seem to find our way back.
You still believe? Just because someone stumbles, loses their way, it doesn't mean they're lost forever.